Great Depression and World War II, 1929 to 1945, Part 2. Workers' unions in the 1930s and 1940s. As the country plunged into the depths of depression in the early 1930s, the outlook for labor unions was gloomy. The number of people who belonged to labor unions dropped from 5 million to roughly 3 million in 1933. In 1933, the American Federation of Labor, AFL, affiliated skilled craft unions represented the vast majority of union members. Despite efforts over the past half-century, the union movement was unable to successfully organize the vast majority of workers in industries involved in mass production. These were to be the key growth industries of the first half of the 20th century, replacing the skilled crafts. In 1933, the outlook for labor unions was bleak, but things would soon turn around. The pro-union posture of the Roosevelt administration and the legislation passed by Congress during the early New Deal contributed to the significant gains labor unions gained in the 1930s. Racism in the Great Depression and World War II. All walks of American life were touched by the Great Depression. However, African Americans were struck worse than any other group. About half of African Americans were unemployed by 1932. As long as there remained unemployed whites, some whites in northern cities argued, African Americans should be fired from all employment. Especially in the South, incidents of racial violence increased. After dropping to 8 in 1932, lynchings increased to a record high 28 that year. While the majority of African Americans had historically supported the Republican Party, Roosevelt's election marked the beginning of a shift in voting preferences. It is well documented that Roosevelt hosted African American guests at the White House and relied on the counsel of several black advisors. Historian John Hope Franklin claims that Roosevelt's fireside chats gave many African Americans a sense of belonging they had never experienced before and got them fired up to help solve the challenges of the Great Depression. World War II. The United States went to war with Japan after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in December 1941. A few days later, Germany and Italy declared war on the United States, and America entered World War II on a full scale. After the United States entered World War II, there was an immediate and huge mobilization. With millions of men and women fighting in the military services overseas, most civilians were committed to doing their part for the war effort in whatever ways they could. Women who had previously stayed at home or worked in fields unrelated to the military found work in factories making airplanes, weapons, military uniforms, and so on. Rationing schemes, recycling, and scrap metal campaigns were implemented across the United States as the demand for steel and other commodities skyrocketed. Liberty bonds were another way that Americans contributed financially to the war effort. The U.S. government sold bonds to raise money for the war, and bond buyers felt good about contributing to the cause.